I'm Jewish. I'm observant. I observe the Sabbath. I observe the holidays. And it's wonderful. But I wasn't always this way. It's really funny. In Saks, I sat next to a lovely young lady who was observant, right? I wasn't observant at the time, but she was. And she sat right next to me, and I would see her leave early, right? On Fridays. I'm still working. She's leaving early because she had the courage to insist on, or to set that boundary, right? And I felt like so stupid. I remember her like walking out, and I'm like still here, you know what I mean? Like I'm still working. And really, I think, whoever the people out there, if they're listening, if they are in the similar shoes, take your time, take your holidays, whatever they are. Like it doesn't matter. Like some things come before work.
Why build a big tent community of in-house lawyers without restrictions on who can join? How do you manage the transition from in-house lawyer to founder? And can you keep space for your religious faith during the process? Today, we are joined on the Abstract by my friend Shai Mehani, co-founder and CEO of In-House Connect. In-House Connect is a thriving community of more than 50,000. Is that right? 50,000?
That's correct.
In-house lawyers. And it's the place that they turn for connection, education, and advancement. Shai has practiced data privacy, marketing law, and commercial contracts in-house at companies like Altice, Saks Fifth Avenue, maybe where he buys his classy blazers like he has on, and Power Technologies. Earlier in his career, he spent time as a litigator and as a clerk for a Superior Court judge in New Jersey. Shai, thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of The Abstract.
It's a pleasure to be here. And now I'm thinking about my suits from the Saks days, but I don't think they fit me anymore. So I'm a little bit remiss.
That's because you've been bulking up, right?
Yes. We'll
hitting the hotel gyms as you travel around the United States.
Definitely. That's exactly where you'll find me. But it's wonderful to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited to do this, and I'm glad that we get to do it in person in New York together. It's a lot more fun, I think, being face-to-face than on a glorified version of a Zoom call. Oh, those episodes are good too. Okay, let's get started. I want to start with you with why you wanted to go to law school. I don't ask that of every guest, but I think it's a good place for us to start.
Yeah. So I wish I had an exciting story about like an uncle or, some transformative event where I save somebody from from prison sentence or something. I have the most boring origin law school story. In college, I was good at reading and writing. I did the poli-sci thing, and the next logical extension was law school. And that also made my mom really happy, which was a huge bonus. And I have a really funny story about why I picked the law school I went to. I went to Brooklyn Law School.
Yeah.
And this is really embarrassing. I was back in the day, there was a show called The Apprentice.
Sure.
Donald Trump.
Of course.
And I loved The Apprentice. It was like the number one show at the time.
Yeah,
and it's really
I remember watching it.
Right? It was great. Like I really enjoyed it. And you remember the Donald was like in the middle. He had, he had an advisor on his right and an advisor on his left.
Yes.
And the advisor on his left was a guy named George Ross.
Okay.
And he was like a real estate lawyer for the Trump organization. And I really I really liked George Ross, and I bought his book or something like that. And I saw that he was a adjunct professor at Brooklyn Law School. And after that, I was sold. I'm like, I'm going to Brooklyn Law School because of George Ross. And it is, in hindsight, it is the dumbest reason to pick a law school. Do not do that, folks at home. Do not do that, aspiring law students. I never even got to take a course with him. He stopped. He stopped being like an adjunct professor before I got there. So that's why I picked Brooklyn Law School. It's really funny.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't that great? Like The Apprentice, George Ross. But yeah, so that's why I went to law school in Brooklyn Law.
Well, maybe you saw opportunity there or in ways that the rest of us did not at that point in time.
Yeah. Something. We'll talk about this later on, but I look back at my career. It's a really funny, or my career path, or my whatever. It's really funny how like the dots, they make no sense. Like in the moment, they make zero sense. But in hindsight, I see a lot of connection. Interestingly enough, but talk about that later.
You started, and I think that's actually common for a lot of people too. So it's good for people to hear that sort of story from someone like you. You started your career, you were doing litigation. Did you have any idea at that time that you wanted to go in-house?
Yeah. So to be honest, at the time, it was 2010. It was fresh off like a huge recession.
Right.
It was very difficult. Like I went to law school imagining the traditional path of going to, a big firm, making partner, doing that whole grind. And I got zero traction after I had one OCI interview out of the summer, and I totally messed it up because it was before the days of Google Maps. I'm really dating myself here, but I had like my MapQuest. I'm going to this second round OCI interview, my one like shot at whatever, and I have my MapQuest directions, and like how Bugs Bunny takes like the left turn, the wrong turn in Albuquerque. I took the wrong turn, and I got to the interview late, and that was like I truly missed like my chance at that law firm cycle or that path. So I basically I had to be scrappy, and I took what I can get. Not to say that like what I got or my opportunities weren't great and wonderful and competitive. I just had to take. I just had to be open to paths that I didn't go to law school for. So at the time, I networked my way into a state court clerkship, right, in New Jersey, and my judge was in the matrimonial division, funny enough. So I did matrimonial. I learned matrimonial law, the ins and outs of matrimonial
Is that mostly
law.
Divorces and similar annulments?
Exactly.
And
divorce? I like to say baby mama drama, but there's none of that actually in the court. But divorce, alimony, child support, visitation. There's all types of stuff for non-married people. Right? It's not just that. So I got really good at that. And then from the clerkship, you make friends with the local attorneys who are appearing before the judge. And I got set up with a great firm, small firm, doing pretty much everything, focused on family law. But that was never like what I wanted to do. I'll tell you, I would drive. I was living in Jersey City at the time, and the office was in it was in Morris County. It was in Morris County. And so I had like a long drive, and every day I would pass. I had like this most beautiful skyline of New York City, right? Like
you get the vista out the right window or something.
Seriously, like my windshield was engulfed with this gorgeous view of this beautiful city, skyscrapers, and all this possibility. Yeah. And I was dying to work in that, I was dying to work there. And it was so close I could touch it, but it was so far. I couldn't figure out how to get across the river. Every day I would drive back and forth. And finally, I just got to the point where I was very unhappy doing matrimonial law. It wasn't for me. I like it when people are happy. I like to bring people together. And I got really, really lucky. There was a job posting for an in-house legal role. I had a friend from law school who was VP of legal there. And I owe her like my life, frankly, because she helped me get my foot in the door, and I had to get the job, right? But got the job, and it was a commercial counsel position at a tech startup in New York City, in those gleaming skyscrapers that I dreamed about. And that was my big break. And from there, things really took off, and I got back on the path. But there wasn't like I knew in law school I was good at contracts, I was good at corporate law stuff, but I wasn't like, I want to be in-house. Like it kind of came together pretty organically, I would say.
I like your story about being late to the interview. You reminded me, I haven't thought about this in years. One time, everything goes wrong on the metro in DC. I'm like 25 minutes late to an interview with, at the time, Senator Feinstein's chief of staff, to interview for a position there. Of course, he held like 20 minutes for me for the interview. So I'm 5 minutes past when I was supposed to have completed the interview with him. At the time, that sort of thing feels so important, and like it was the door, and then of course, right? Like I haven't thought about that in years until we sit down here and we talk about it, and yeah, I love that story, and I love how it wasn't even, the company, or it was just the possibility of being in New York that inspired you to take the next step, right?
I got to add to that story. Yeah. I like show up to the interview. I'm late, and the partner was such a jerk about it. He was so mean. Like he was so. It was like their associate and like the partner, and the guy is like, he couldn't be more clear that this is a waste of time. You know, you blew it by not getting here on time, and that was just so devastating. But a learning experience. You know, you got to be on time, and I'm a very like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
there's a lesson in everything. And there's no bad results, just good lessons. So that was a wonderful lesson, but I really laughed that the guy was so mean. He was so mean. And I caught up with somebody from his firm, and I'm like, is this person still here? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, I told them the story. They're cracking up. But I digress. Everybody should be nice. Everybody runs late, and you should be nice no matter what.
Well, and clearly you recover, from being...
it all worked out.
Exactly. I don't know if there are many law school students who listen to these, but if they are, they should listen to this one in particular.
Definitely.
When you went in-house, I mean, it sounds like you didn't have much in the way of expectations, but was it what you expected?
It was wonderful, to be honest, going in-house. I loved it. So I got to join this tech startup full of like energy and excitement and, new people and camaraderie in a way that I never experienced before. Like I was a regular, attorney in the past. I had clients, I had cases, I appeared in front of judges, I dealt with adversaries. I loved my colleagues, but like it wasn't the same. You're off doing your cases, they're doing their cases, and so on. I loved being a part of this, of being part of that company. It was just great. I also was like, I guess we call that imposter syndrome right now. I didn't have any experience. I never redlined a contract before in my life, even, when I practiced. I really was like very green, and the person who helped get my foot in the door, was a fantastic mentor and trained me beautifully and wonderfully. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I'm very fond of that first job.
So where does In-House Connect get started, and how does that fit into the picture?
So when I was doing matrimonial law, there was a big emphasis on networking because it's a small world in the matrimonial bars, right? All across the country, wherever state you are, the matrimonial bar, everybody knows each other. Everybody knows the judges, and the judges know you. And I knew that going into a new career, as an in-house lawyer, I knew nothing. I was really nervous that I was going to fail at this job, and I needed some like support, some friends, I needed to have that network in place before I needed it. So I was super motivated to network and to go out and put myself out there. And
you're a friendly guy.
I'm a friendly guy. I think I've become friendlier over time, frankly. But I was committed to putting myself out there. I was really nervous that I had nothing to fall back on. Like that's truly like why I started to network and do my thing. So there's the ACC, right? There are like groups out there, not as many as there are now, and that's a podcast episode in and of itself. I'd love to talk about that, but there was the ACC, and to be honest, at the time, I couldn't afford the annual membership. Like I just I couldn't do it, and I found a meetup group. It was called the New York In-House Counsel Meetup Group, right?
Like on Meetup,
Meetup.com.
Yeah.
Truly on Meetup. Like I Googled it and it came up. It was New York In-House Counsel Meetup Group. I thought it was like one of these zombie groups that, that's just like floating out there that's inactive. But I clicked and sure enough, it was active. It had active meetings and it wasn't doing anything revolutionary. It was organizing CLE panels, at different law firms. People would sign up. They would attend, and then there would be networking afterwards. And I loved it. And the group organizer screened everybody. He made sure that you are in-house. So, I was in-house. I got in. I started to attend these events, and I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And that's when I first got into networking. That meetup group would eventually become In-House Connect. Like we rebranded it.
Interesting.
In-House Connect, but
okay, tell us the backstory on that, right? Like, how did that actually play out? Because I feel like this is such people think that founder stories are you had this light bulb moment in the shower or on your run one day, and then you just decided that you were gonna, there was this huge inflection point, and you were gonna do it, and you raised a bunch of money, and now it's. And in my experience, at least the founders that I've had on this, podcast before, folks like you, that's not often the case. It's much more like what you're describing.
I think I had one light bulb moment. So I bought the light bulb pack with one in it, not multiple, unfortunately. So so for the first year I was attending these meetups, right? Here's like a tip. If you want to make friends and network, you have to do it consistently. And if you show up to the same meeting, whatever it is, right? You will build a connection and a rapport with people. And that's when things get good. If you go once in a while, you're not going to really make an impact or a presence.
Sure.
So I started to attend every month, like I was a regular. And I got to know the group organizer. His name was Brian Greenberg. Wonderful man, a man I love very, very much. And I told him, maybe 6 months after attending, I told him, look, I love what you're doing. I want to help you run this group, and I think I can help you organize events and do other stuff. There's so much more you can do with this concept. So and it's funny, he didn't say, yes, you're hired, on the spot. I think he waited, I think he was running the group with somebody else. And then that person ended up relocating. So he's so a year later, he comes and he's like, hey, if you're still interested, there's I would love to work with you. I think you'd be great. And that's when I started to get more involved. And this was 2016.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure because I had just gotten, my first role in-house was with the tech startup. And then I knew things were, tech startups are crazy. And that was a crazy tech startup. And I knew, I wasn't feeling so secure about the future of the company, unfortunately. And I sought greener pastures, or so I thought.
Yeah.
And I got a great job as a commercial attorney with Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
And I got to enjoy their fantastic employee discount. And I really wish now that I'm married that I still had it. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So when I joined Saks, that just happens to be when I started to co-run the group with Brian. So then the next several years, I'm 2 or 3 years later, I'm continuing to run these events where we're not making any money for the
It's all in New York at the time.
All in New York, all in person. We added, we did a few mixers, kind of like, what we do now, but only in New York. It was a lot more primitive, I think, from what we do now. I have a great story of our second mixer. We had this big mixer planned. It was supposed to be on the rooftop in Soho, this cool place in Soho, rooftop. It was December, but they had I'm like, you have heat lamps and it would be covered and everything would be great. It'll be awesome. Don't worry. So I get there and I see firemen coming up and down up and down the thing. I see the fire truck. I'm like, this cannot be good. And I see the event planner that we've been working with, and they're all frazzled. They're all nervous. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, the neighbors complained. We can't do it on the roof. We're going to put you in the basement. And I'm like, okay. I was very zen. I'm like, roll with the punches. I had a lot of I don't know. I was just very calm about it.
You drank your green tea that day.
Serious. Brian is like freaking out. I'm like, no, it'll be fine. Don't worry. And we had a great event. It was awesome. Nobody even mentioned the rooftop or the big.
Yeah.
Like, it was really, really funny. And the only money we ever made was the refund we got from the venue, because it was supposed to be on the roof, but we got this moved to the basement, and I harassed them into giving us some money back. So whatever we got back was the only money we ever made from this whole endeavor.
So when did it start to grow then? And was that deliberate to say, hey, we're going to do some stuff virtually, or maybe people outside of the New York metropolitan area might be interested in this? Like, how did the growth story happen?
So I would say there was like two steps. First, like pre-COVID, there was a pre-COVID step where I spoke to Brian, and I'm like, look, we got to rebrand. We're doing this great thing, but we can't be the New York In-House Counsel meetup group. That's not, you know what I mean. We need something a little bit more oomph. And he came up with the title, or with the name In-House Connect. He's a great marketing guy. I really, really miss him, and I'll talk about I'll talk about that. But so I said, look, let's rebrand as In-House Connect, and let's go on LinkedIn. There's a lot more in-house lawyers on LinkedIn than there are on Meetup,
So you're kind of early to LinkedIn, actually, right? I mean, if this is what, you said 2017?
20, I think 2018 maybe, something like that. I could totally be wrong, but I think it's around then. And I said, let's rebrand, let's throw a summer mixer and a rooftop this time, and we're not going to get kicked out. And we did, and it was awesome. So like that was a big step. And then I also had this idea to basically cold connect with in-house lawyers in New York. Like, hey, you look like a good fit for In-House Connect. We do free CLEs and social events in New York City for In-House Counsel. Connect to learn more. And I personally would cold connect with people. And that's how we grew, like in the beginning. And it worked beautifully. Like we suddenly started to see new faces at our events and stuff like that. So that was a big, big turning point. And I'm still like scratching my head. How do I make money? How do we expand? How do we grow? It was, I thought about it a lot, and I didn't see, any real way of doing it. And it was hard, it was hard to drum up revenue, frankly, in this state. Because we're not like big enough to really like command a special presence. Sure. And it's more like the firms are doing us a favor by catering to us. So it's hard to make money like that. So the next big inflection point was COVID. When COVID hit, I think my one light bulb moment was, what if we took what we're doing in person, put it online, but because I have a lot more flexibility on the speakers, and it's much easier for people to join. What if we made must-see CLE webinars? Sure. Like, what if the webinars were so good, that cannot be ignored? That in-house, I was like laughing about this. Like, what if in-house lawyers are talking about our webinars like they talk about the Super Bowl? Like, seriously, everybody talks about it, right? It's funny. I was laughing. I had such a smile on my face. I remember I was home, like locked down, and I'm like, this is a great idea. And that was my gold star. That was my guiding principle, frankly. And that's what I set out to do. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. This will, if I can execute, we'll get a big enough audience, and then opportunities will present itself. And so at that point, I kind of reached out to Brian, and I wanted to move forward, and he was kind of hesitant, and we basically, I think like it was a good opportunity for me to take over. And, he's a little bit older than me, more advanced in his career and his life. And he better for me to just start and run with this concept. And that's what ended up happening. So from then I had 100% control of IHC and charted a new path into uncharted territory.
Yeah, this is great. One of the things that's been interesting to me about IHC, and I can see it sort of in the growth of the fact that it really took off with LinkedIn, with a lot of these virtual events, with the webinars, the very open approach that you take, or what I would describe as a big tent approach. I'm curious if that was intentional. I'm also just curious if there are any sort of like guiding principles that you have as you think about growing In-House Connect. Maybe you didn't have those in, 2017, but I'm sure you do today.
Yeah. It's a great question. I'm smiling at the big tent, phrase. My thought was the meetup group itself was free, right? And so just keep this free. Like at the time, I wasn't thinking more than that. As I started to do more and more, I realized that keeping it open and easy, like make it easy for people to access. A lot of people can't navigate Zoom,
Sure.
And a lot, like I didn't want to have any friction in our process. So I really see it, frankly, as a strategic advantage because there's a lot of groups out there that are membership based and they do great stuff. They're excellent. But I can't attend their events, and maybe you can if you remember, but I
Sure.
don't know. Like I see it now as such a blessing that we kept it open and we kept it open and easy for people to attend. So I think at the time I was just staying true to taking the in-person concept and putting it online. But certainly, I had like numerous chances to make it membership only.
Yeah.
And I love that we're open and that anybody can attend our events practically. And I aim to keep it that way. Who knows what the future holds? We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But I really love that placement in the market, so to speak. I love it from a business standpoint. I love it from a community standpoint.
Yes.
The once you get above a certain point of audience on a webinar, the conversation like explodes.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. I love it. I love to see it. The people enjoy it. And it's a key feature of In-House Connect, and it kind of certainly wasn't my I didn't have a crystal ball. I only had that one light bulb, unfortunately. But I'm thrilled that we kept with it, and things are the way they are today.
Any other principles that you think about as you think about growing In-House Connect or guiding you? Yeah.
I mean, number one is warmth and positivity.
I like that.
When I was doing the in-person meetups, I felt very strongly that I was the host. Me and Brian were hosts, right? Yeah. And people coming, right? You had regulars who would come and they felt comfortable because they're regulars, but the marginal person who is attending for the first time, I always was looking out for them. And I knew the faces, I knew the regulars, and I knew the newbies. And so I always looked out for people who were alone or who were like by themselves. I always made sure to talk to them, to introduce them, to make them feel welcome. Like that 100% was intentional. 100% was intentional. And I wanted to somehow bring that energy and that warmth to the webinars. It's a funny thing, like a warm webinar, warm webinar. But that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to establish. And it's, I didn't go to school for webinars. Nobody really taught me how to do any of this. And it just worked out really, really nicely. So warmth and positivity. It's a warm environment. It's a positive environment. Warmth, positivity, excitement. I want people who are excited and inspired by their careers and curious. I'll talk about this later on, I'm sure, but I feel like a lot of people kind of take their careers for granted, and they work so hard in law school. Maybe they worked hard in private practice. They got this job, they're in-house or wherever they are in their careers. I feel like this is your life. This is what you're going to spend the vast majority of your time on this earth doing. Yeah. Make the most of it. Be the best, be cutting edge, be enthusiastic and excited. And that's the other thing, I want to bring and I want to inspire people. Truly must see CLE. Come check out this CLE. You will get better at redlining. You'll know what's going on in employment law. You'll know what's going on with executive orders and AI and contracts and there's a whole host of things. And I feel like that's lacking in the current CLE landscape. There's none of that energy or excitement.
For sure. It's not, I mean, oftentimes you have great law firm partners who are coming on, because I've listened to some of these CLEs, but it's not your typical law firm CLE, which is, this new reg came out, and so we got to get on and, do an hour webinar on, and it's just going to be focused on this, and it's going to be I feel like you encourage the guests, or you encourage the panels to bring a lot more energy than you typically see out there in CLE content.
Yeah. We have a pre-call usually for every webinar, because I want my speakers to be prepared. I feel like it's not sometimes we have, our average is 400 attendees per webinar. It's a lot. It's a lot of people, and the format, the way we, use our Zoom, like it's a lot more public and, I guess, transparent, you could say. So I want them to be prepared, but I also want to coach them up. I want them to understand, like, don't check your personality at the door. That's what got you, that's what we want. We want that personality. So definitely it's something I'm intentional about, and I kind of help my speakers bring out.
I want to ask you in a second about when you went all in on In-House Connect. But before we get there, something that I don't think many people know about you or have noticed on your resume, or is you spent a period of time in there when you were getting started with In-House Connect, let's say, doing like fractional work or working through Axiom. And the reason I bring that up is I'm curious how that informed your sort of approach to community, or if that informed your approach to community at all, because I guess I think it's easier to feel more secure when you've got like one full-time job and you know who your boss is, and maybe it's for it's for Saks Fifth Avenue, and everybody knows what that is, right? Talk to us a little bit about that.
I love that you're asking me this question. I love the research. Tyler does his research for future guests. So it's a great question. I wasn't a fractional GC.
Okay.
I basically I actually got laid off from Saks Fifth Avenue, and that was a deeply transformational event for me. And that's because I really going from matrimonial to this tech startup, then to a company like Saks. I really was motivated to work hard, to do my best. I wanted to be a great corporate, employee. And I really was into it. And at the end of the day, Saks wasn't doing well, right? They had a huge round of layoffs. And when that happened, I didn't see it coming. I was a deer with a capital D. The HR ambush. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I've
been through a layoff too, and I like to be very open about that, because I think it is actually, it was a very formative experience. I did not like it, but it was a very transformational experience too. I wouldn't be sitting here without that. Totally. So I am familiar with the HR comes on and you're like, oh. Well, we shouldn't swear on the podcast, but oh boy, this is not going to be a good conversation.
I'll tell you, just because it was so memorable for me, I got a random meeting invite from the GC for a random office. And I'm like, okay, this must be a top secret meeting of some kind, So I go, and it's like a clear glass office, and I see him, and I see the HR, and I'm like, oh, I had my manila, I had my notepad to take notes. Anyways, it was super, super transformational. Because it really, I hate to say it, it removed my my night. How do I say my naivete?
Naivete.
Yes, naivete. I really felt like I felt like I became an adult after that. After what happened, I realized that look, you have to put yourself first. I'm just super shaped. I felt like I gave it all for this company. And I had to, from then on, I was like, look, I'm protecting myself. I put myself first. I had some random business ideas that I wanted to do, and I didn't because I felt like it might conflict. that was like out the window, and that was super, super, super transformational for me. So I forget the
then you go to Axiom, and
so I signed up with Axiom. And my Axiom experience was really interesting, not from the community building perspective, but from the opportunity I had to work in different different legal departments.
Right.
Like, you work for Axiom or an ALSP, and you get, let's say you have like a 3 or 4 month engagement, and you have a few of those in a row. You get to work with a lot of people and a lot of different companies in a short period of time, and that was a super eye-opening experience. Like, I went from the tech startup had a culture, Saks had a culture. I got to work at Casper Mattress with you probably know him.
Jonathan?
Yep,
was
Jonathan
the GC at the time? Yeah.
Trutman. He's awesome.
He just got a new job, I think, today.
Yes, he did. I was like, good, way to go, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I hope to see him next week at the Miami IHC Mixer. So I got to work with him. I got to work with others who were fantastic, and I loved working at the Casper Mattress at that time. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So that was great. Then I went and I worked for Salesforce, and that was really, really interesting. It wasn't like what I expected. It was a lot more regimented. I never had a playbook before. I had a playbook now. And that was super interesting. And also comparing and contrasting that culture. The Salesforce culture is very strong. They call their workforce an ohana, right? It's like you're a community or a family is what it means.
Yeah.
And I never
Hawaiian.
Exactly. And I'd never experienced that before. And then when I went from there to Altice, which is Optimum Cable, I also, noticed the contrast in cultures and expectations and so on. It was super, super, super eye-opening. So like that informed content and what in-house counsel really need, and like what in-house counsel are going through. So I got to see a lot of different legal departments and a lot of different roles and people and how they manage their responsibilities. That's what it was super eye-opening for me. Not necessarily the community angle, but still very, very important nonetheless.
Super interesting. Knowledge accrues, and you can accrue a lot if you're shifting around and working at so many different places like that.
I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I also think industry knowledge is one of my second light bulb is the industry knowledge. Like, what separates in-house lawyers from each other, besides for like the usual experience and so on, is industry knowledge. So if you do, an ALSP stint for 3 months in one industry and then another, that is valuable expertise that you have accrued. And it's, for me, it was extremely valuable and rewarding, frankly.
So, okay, we'll skip ahead then. When did you decide to go all in on In-House Connect?
I have a crazy story about that.
Please.
Maybe it's not so crazy, but crazy to me.
We like crazy stories.
So, all right, 2022, COVID, it was kind of a proof of concept time. And I saw a lot of, at the end of the year, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, wow, like this is a business. This is truly a business. And there's so much potential. At the same time, I'm working at Altice. I loved my job at Altice. I was there for 4 years, I think, at this point, the longest I've ever been anywhere. So which was wonderful, frankly, because I kept a year here at the tech startup, a year and a half at Saks. Then I had the Axiom stint. So to just make a home was really, really nice. When 2023 rolls around, I started to think heavily about, doing this full time. And I had a lot of confidence in In-House Connect as like a business based on the partners and their reactions and their appreciation. Like they gave me strength, like, frankly, like I wasn't so sure like what would be the future of In-House Connect, but
were they paying you at this point? It's hard to get law firms to part with their money.
You know
That's
what?
when you know you have a good business.
Maybe I'll save that for the pet peeve part, but it was very hard. I'll tell you, Jessica Wynn,
Sure.
Jessica Wynn, and at the time Lexion
Uh-huh.
was like they were my first like sponsor. I mean, I had like one or two law firms before them, but like when they signed on and like supported us, that enabled me to take the next level. Not like quit my job. This was like still early on, but that was like a huge boost. And I really owe her a lot of credit for helping us get over that hump. But 2023 rolls around. I'm loving In-House Connect. It's my heart, it's my soul. I'm doing it all my free time and then some. And things are gnawing at me. Like I don't the side hustle culture. Right. It was a much more like thing back a year, whatever, 2 years ago then, like when people were remote, people had multiple jobs. And so I was never like that. In my heart, I felt like Altice hired me. They hired all of me, 100% of me. And if I can't give them 100%, like that's a problem. And, I kept like going on and on. And then what happened was, Legal Week. So Legal Week was in New York City. It was in March, and that was like the first legal tech conference I attended, where my goal was to promote In-House Connect. So I bought a ticket. Shai from In-House Connect, CEO is my title, and I go and I'm like trying to talk to these people at the booths, and like they want nothing to do with me, they want real business, not like not trying to give me business. But I went around and I introduced myself as Shai from In-House Connect, and I look people in the eye, Shai from In-House Connect, shake their hand and everything, and I went back home and I flipped open my laptop to be Shai from Altice. And I felt like I was not Shai from Altice anymore. Like, I'm like, I'm not this person. I am not like, I'm not this person. So I was like very, very wobbly. Then the next day, I go to, next day, we'll talk about this later on. Sorry, I keep preempting the questions.
It's teasers for people to continue to listen.
Yes. Stick around. You'll learn more. I go to services, right? Jewish. I pray at the synagogue every day, every morning. That's how I start my day. And my rabbi, after services, he gives a class. Usually talks about the weekly Bible portion, right? So we get inspiration, we learn things to do, what not to do, and so on. And we talk about holidays, Jewish holidays, and Passover was like coming up, right? And another thing is we celebrate the new moon, right? New moon. We call it Rosh Chodesh. It's the first of the month.
Okay.
And it's like a special thing in Judaism. And his class, I remember it so clearly. He was saying that each month has a special power, right? And the month that it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is the first of the month of Nisan, and that is the month of Passover. And the Jews got out of Egypt. And he was saying that the power of the month is the power to break free of bondage, to break out of your chains. And he said the first of the month is when that power is the most strongest. And I'm like, listen to this. I'm like, okay, like I needed a sign of like, when should I do this? How should I do it? And I'm hearing my rabbi tell me this. And I'm like, I got to do this.
You got to go for it.
I got to go for it. So I also had a buddy, Ariel, who was like peppering me, like, when you're going to quit, when you're going to quit, when you're going to quit. He had a big influence on this decision too. But once I heard that, I'm like, it's the first of the month, special power, break free of bondage. I'm going to break free of this, I loved my job, but it was time to set the wheels in motion.
That's fantastic. So That's a great story.
So I tapped into the Zodiac. It was the scariest thing I ever did, like bother my boss out of nowhere. Like, it's pretty quiet and calm for years and years. And I'm like, hey, can we talk? And he's like, well, what's going on? And like, I told him.
How did that go? I'm always I don't ask this that often, but I should ask it more because it's, I think it's important to quit a job well.
Yeah.
As both of us maybe have seen with layoffs before, companies don't always part with you in the best of ways or as well as I think that they should or they can,
Right.
as well as is within their power to do, I guess, is what I would say. But it's also hard because people don't have a ton of experience quitting usually when they do it for the first or the second time. And
it wasn't so bad. So
okay.
I think I was like I'm like, what, how is this going to go? What am I going to say? And what I came up with, and this gave me like the calmness to proceed. I basically said like, look, I'm going to say that, and this is how it went. I said like, look, I've been, I have this group on the side, In-House Connect. I want to take it more seriously and I want to just do it 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I know like it was a sensitive time because I did data privacy and the CPRA at the time was going to go into effect in July of that year. And
or so they said. Yeah.
And yes, or so they said. Exactly. Everything changes with California, but we were like changing the privacy policies and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, look, I know this is out of nowhere. This is out of the blue, but please, I'm going to stay here and work until you find a replacement. Once you find a replacement, I'm off and we'll leave as friends. And I felt like that was good.
That's great.
Like I'll give them as much notice as you find somebody you like, you hire them, and I'll go. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up leaving in August, and and it was great. They replaced me with 2 people, not just one, I must say. But it was great, and we left as friends.
Before we turn to your faith, which I really do want to talk about with you, I'm curious if there was anybody who you felt like really supported you through this journey of going all in on In-House Connect. If there were any people in your life who were essential to that, to your ability to make that leap.
Yeah. It's funny. I knew my wife would be nervous. Yeah. I knew my in-laws would be nervous, frankly. That was like, I wasn't even worried about my parents. Cause I know they trust me 100%, but my in-laws. So like before I did it, I kept saying like, I kind of like prepared them, mentally, like, look, I'm going to do this at some point. I don't know when, but So like I got them ready. My wife, I got her mentally ready as well. So, I knew I had their blessing and I just went ahead and did it. But it's funny. I don't have like a direct mentor. I have like, I take inspiration from lots of people and I, get advice all the time on lots of different things. But nobody is like, okay, you should do this, you should do that.
That's fine. Not everybody needs, and as let's talk about, one of the things that I think does guide you and that is really important to you is your faith. And I've noticed this in the sense of you setting, I don't know if I call them boundaries because I don't know if they're necessarily boundaries, but it's more like this is a priority for me. And so I'm not going to be available like on this day of this week or at this time, or I can't do that because I have to catch this flight home because I need to be home to be with my family, right? A lot of people won't do that, or they won't take it to that extent. So I don't know, just tell us a little bit about it and we'll see where this goes.
I was interested that you noticed that actually. Yeah. When did you notice? Or
I don't know. I think one time I did. Maybe I asked to reschedule a call for a certain day, or I said, could we do the event this week? And you said, no, we can't do the event that week because I need to be in New York for this. I don't remember what the event was, or what the religious holiday was at the time. Right. But I noticed that, and I think it takes a certain level of courage, actually. Yeah. Right. To be willing to sort of draw that line.
I wasn't so like I said before, I'm Jewish, I'm observant. I observe the Sabbath, I observe the holidays. And it's wonderful, but I wasn't always this way. It's really funny. In Saks, I sat next to a lovely young lady who was observant, right? I wasn't observant at the time, but she was. And she sat right next to me, and I would see her leave early, right, on Fridays. I'm still working. She's leaving early because she had the courage to insist on, or to set that boundary, right? And I felt like so stupid. I remember her like walking out, and I'm like still here, you know what I mean? Like I'm still working, and that was such a regret of mine, frankly. So when I went to the next, like, it didn't apply really to the Axiom like roles, but
Sure.
But when I joined Altice, I said, upfront, it was a very tough. I wouldn't say tough, but for me, it was difficult, and I know a lot of people struggle with this because the high holidays are like crunched in September and October, and it's like Monday, Tuesday I'm out, and then the next Monday, Tuesday I'm out, and then I'm there, but the Wednesday I'm out, and then Monday, Tuesday again, and Monday, Tuesday again, and then I'm not, and then I'm working for like 6 months straight, with no breaks. But to go in there and to make that request extremely, extremely hard. I'm very, very fortunate that my boss, Bill Heber from Altice, was excellent, super understanding, never gave me a hard time about it. And really, I think, whoever the people out there, if they're listening, if they are in the similar shoes, take your time, take your holidays, whatever they are. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, some things come before work. And again, off of that experience, when I got laid off, I was like, I'm not putting the company first anymore. It's time to carve that out. These days, right, like I get to say, I have a lot more say over what when things happen. And in fact, I actually print out the yearly schedule. Like we get a calendar with the dates and the times and everything. And so like I base off my webinar schedule, my in-person event schedule off of that calendar. And I see, like, because it's happened in the past where I didn't use the calendar and there was a holiday and I booked a webinar on and I had to move everything around. So I put that first. And I think that to lead a healthy, balanced life, you have to put, you have to prioritize things. Work will be there. Work will
always be there.
Work will always be there. Exactly.
Yeah.
But those, you miss a holiday, you can't get it back. You got to put that stuff first. So it's fun. I'm smiling that you noticed.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the opportunity to talk more about it.
Yeah. Where do you hope to take In-House Connect over the next couple of years? Like what's next for you and IHC?
It's a great question, and I wish I had a better answer. I wish so many people.
You're still figuring it out. That's okay. I mean,
I like to keep things flexible, and I like to adapt. Right? I like to keep it, like water. Like I like to be flexible. I like to adapt. I know somebody smarter than me, said that before, but I like to keep it flexible and adapt. I don't necessarily have like a defined end goal. I would say there's definitely things that I want to do and that I'm, grinding towards. So I'm happy to talk about that. I mean, first and foremost, I want the experience to be like excellent. I want everybody who tunes into a webinar to love it. I want their experience on the website to be great. I want them to get their CLEs fast. And, there's so much to do with there. And I'm not there yet. My website, I need to, start over. We've outgrown the website. It crashes a lot, just recently. And that's a whole nother thing. There's a lot of improvements to be made there. Ultimately, I want to get to the point where every in-house lawyer knows In-House Connect exists and knows that if they want to feel connected, if they want to learn more, if they want to participate in great mixers, if they want to be inspired from their career, join In-House Connect. It's free. It's easy. It's perfect for what you're going through right now. Like that's my ultimate goal. We're at 50,000 subscribers. I want to get to 100,000.
Do you have a little countdown clock in your
you know what? I have like an email, my MailChimp, it tells me how many we have. And I'm like, today was a good day. And I'm like, today was a bad, it's kind of like homeostasis a little bit. It's really hard. It's really hard to grow. Especially, we're very, very big and we do a lot of stuff and whatever. It's extremely, extremely hard to grow. So I'm in it for the long time, long game. I love being an entrepreneur. I love being in charge. I think, frankly, as I'm coming to discover, I love being in charge, and I love, just being a part of this conversation. You go sell your company, you get a boatload of money. My wife will spend it before I get to, see it. But in all seriousness, you sell the company and you're out of the conversation. And I like being in a part of the conversation. So I'm not looking to sell anytime soon. I want to grow it. And ultimately, I guess, to really answer your question, besides for getting to 100,000 subscribers, which who knows, Frank, I don't know if I'll ever get there, frankly, but fingers crossed. I want to do conferences. I think conferences, I think there's an opportunity for more conferences. The way we do our webinars is special. The way we do our mixers is special. I want to do conferences that are special, that are excellent. I've never done a conference before, so I'm hesitant. And I'm hesitant to add that to my plate, frankly, because I got a lot going on. But that's the next thing I want to tackle.
We've got our SpotDraft Summit next week as we're recording this, and conferences are big, but you can do it. I have no doubt. I
think that there's a lot. It's funny. I really enjoyed the episode with Kevin and Matt. Right. Kevin Cohn. And Matt from Priori. And Kevin said something interesting. He said that there's too many conferences, but I think he's talking about legal ops conferences.
There are a lot of legal ops conferences. Yes.
I don't think that there's any great in-house conferences, frankly. Not the way that I want to do it.
I'm biased. I like the L Suite ones, but that is a different approach than your approach. And I've never been to ACC. I can't speak to that. There's been a profusion of legal ops communities, and I think his point about seeing a little bit of consolidation there is a good one. I could see. I've never been to Legal Week. I could see an in-house Connect conference in New York doing very well, though.
I agree. We have, these mixers are illuminating for me because a lot of what I constantly hear is, "Oh, I've seen your face 100 times." I'm not sure what to say. Like I kind of had like this weird, like, "Oh, I could see you too." My Zoom host capabilities, but that weirds people out, so I'm not going to do that anymore. But definitely, we have a lot of fans, and I want to bring them together. And I also want to create a memorable experience. I like the mixers are fantastic, but they're like, one night, they're 3 hours. Let's do something more substantial. So I'm definitely game, and we'll see.
If folks want to get connected, is LinkedIn the right place to go? Is the old website that may be a new version of the website soon? Where should people go if they want to get connected and learn more?
Go to inhouseconnect.org. Check out our upcoming events. I would say that's like the best way to connect and to get involved. And certainly if you want to reach out to me, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Love LinkedIn. And then, it is what you make it, right? So, you tune into our events, participate in the chat, you make some friends, you attend a mixer, right? And attend a conference, who knows, right? There's other things I want to do, blogs and interviews and so on. There's a lot more we can take with it. So I would say start with our webinars and we'll go from there.
All right. As we start to wrap up, few traditional closing questions for you. The first one is your favorite part of your day-to-day.
I like talking to people from all different areas. I just like to. I'll have a Zoom with a law firm partner, and then a legal tech company, and then maybe an IHC, audience member who wants to participate, and maybe a job seeker. I like I just like all the mix of advice, of strategy, of energizing people. Just no day is ever the same. And I just like being a part of the conversation. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It's something that I love about, besides this, it's something that I love about my job as well. Do you have a professional pet peeve?
Yeah. I've been thinking, it's funny when you asked this question before, I was like, I don't have any pet peeves. I'm a relaxed, calm guy. And then I thought about it. I'm like, then I found too many pet peeves. So I'm going to, this is my, I guess I'll go with this pet peeve as my pet peeve. I really don't like the term recovering lawyer.
Okay.
I don't like it. Number one, like what, who hurt you? That you're a recovering lawyer. Was it really that bad to be an attorney? Like that's like number one.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a stressful profession, but it's an amazing profession. When I was doing matrimonial law, I got these kids out of a really bad situation, and I got to put them in the arms of their grandparents at Christmas time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hated matrimonial law. Don't get me wrong. And it was hard. It was tough. The people were everything was really, really hard, but I still, you got to find the good. You got to find the good parts in these things. So I just feel like, when you say you're a recovering lawyer, you're announcing to the world that you really, really, really regret going to law school.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think like that's a waste. And often when this person says that they're a recovering lawyer, it's like the first time you're meeting them. It's like, hey, I'm Shai. I'm a recovering lawyer.
Yeah.
And now I have to like be polite and like laugh at your, it's a joke, right?
It is.
But I have to like, ha ha ha, like, yeah, definitely being a lawyer sucks. But I don't think being a lawyer sucks. I think if you're lucky enough to practice at a high level, to work with great people, to work with a great company, if you're really to maximize the opportunity of being an attorney, you're not going to hate it. You're going to love it, and you're going to be thrilled by it. And I just hate, like, that's like the posture, that's like the energy you are putting out there. It's like, I regret. It's like, I regret going to law school. It's like, hey, my name is Shai. I regret going to law school. Like, no. There's so much more to you than your recovering lawyer stance.
You're an entrepreneur and a lawyer.
Exactly. You're a former lawyer.
Even if you're not practicing anymore.
Exactly.
I like that answer.
Lawyer. Like,
I think that might start a little bit of debate, and I think it'd be a good one to have. Yeah, I like that answer.
Throw some grenades, right?
Yeah.
Anything for the views, right? I want this to be the number one abstract episode ever.
A book that you would recommend to our listeners.
Yeah. So I like biographies.
Me too.
I think that's just the best. Those are like the best books. I'm reading Sam Walton, Made in America.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoy that book. I read Charlie Munger. He wrote a book recently that was excellent. Henry Kissinger wrote a book as well. He had like profiled 6 or 7 leaders, and that was really interesting. Those books I find enormously valuable. So anything leadership, biography wise, I highly, highly recommend.
A final question for you, my traditional closing question. It's, if you could look back on your days of being a young lawyer, just getting started maybe as a clerk or doing matrimonial law, something that you know now that you wish that you'd known back then.
So this really made me smile. All your questions make me smile, Tyler. We should do this more. But I'm like laughing because like looking back at my career is such a hodgepodge. Like I wouldn't even know if I could go back in the DeLorean and say, hey, Shai, I wouldn't know what I would even say, to be honest with you, because it makes no sense. The only thing I would say, and this is tongue in cheek, is buy more Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. That's honestly like the number one thing I would say. But like truly, like looking in hindsight, I really feel like everything happens for a reason. Like at every point in my career, I was exactly where I needed to be when I needed to be there. And it wasn't fun. Like the beginning was not fun at all. But I needed to be there. I needed to learn. I needed to get my feet wet. I needed to, get tough, whatever it is. Ultimately, everything brings you to where you are right now. And I don't have any like regrets. I don't have anything I would do differently. I would do it all pretty much the same. Maybe, so some girls I would avoid maybe, but that's not professional. But I think that everything happens for a reason. So, if I could go back and like tell young Shai something, it would just be like, trust, everything happens for a reason, and just trust that you are where you're supposed to be, exactly when you're supposed to be there.
I love the energy that you bring to your webinars, to your events, to this podcast. Shai, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of The Abstract.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It's a pleasure. I love your jacket, by the way.
Oh, thank you. A find in Paris.
Ooh,
yeah.
Love it. That's my favorite. My wife and I, our favorite place.
It's a beautiful place. Yeah. City of Love.
City of Love. This is a beautiful
City
place
of Light.
too. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you for coming. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And we hope to see you next time.